Okay, mic's on. So I'd like to welcome everyone to the Splunk user group. I don't actually know if I'm in camera. This is quite a bit of a guerrilla setup to do the in-person and online component. Hopefully people are watching online to make this all worthwhile. It's going to be a bit awkward because we've got people in over here. Say hello. So I'm going to have to be facing both the camera and you guys for this. It's just myself, Andrew, at the moment, because Tom is on his way. He should be here in the next couple of minutes or so, hopefully. But we've got a good, hopefully, sort of recap of Conf 2020, of which I attended virtually, and Tom was actually in Vegas himself, the lucky guy. So without further ado, just really went over the agenda right there. We do have this sort of subject topic, the any other business at the end, which we're going to try to experiment with in the near future, just to see if anybody has any problems that they want to bring with us to us, and we can collectively troubleshoot the issue as a user group. So it should have two speakers. It's just myself. Tom is literally on the way. So I'm Andrew. I'm the co-leader. We just have a brief slide on Adarma because we are hosted by them today, but this is the only time you'll see them referenced in this presentation. And just a reminder that this is being live streamed on YouTube. Hopefully people are seeing this right now, and it's going to be made available publicly after the user group finishes. I think it's instantly as soon as I hit the end streaming button. If you want to discuss topics, try not to mention confidential information like your employer unless you are at liberty to mention them. If you don't want anything made public, it is a public live stream, so please avoid doing that if you don't want things to be known. Yeah, the third point's just a reiteration of that. I'm getting text messages from Tom, so I'm just gonna pop away just for a second. Does anybody want to host for a minute? No. Okay. Right. This is the joy of in-person hybrid events. I'm gonna disappear for literally a minute to get the other presenter in. Right. Sorry about that. Back in view. I really need like a third monitor just to see what OBS is doing. But anyway, house rules. This is a technical-led user group, so we are generally not here to sell products. We're here to discuss Splunk. This is an inclusive environment. We follow the Berlin Code of Conduct, and it's led by technology, so that's essentially the same point. I'm worried that the mic isn't picking up, but hopefully the little bar there is moving about. See, I can tell if it was coming out the TV, but I've muted it because it'll just do a feedback loop and all that. Anyway, Tom's now here. He's hello. So just we're going to present from here and outwards, but you feel free to get a pizza and all that. Yeah. You can tell this it's been a while since we've done in person. Yeah. We do have a raffle provided by JetBrains. They offer a code for any one of these products for a year. We'll do a spin the reel thing at the very end. I don't really know how to do it for online. I don't know who's actually viewing it online right now, but it'll be open for people who are in person, definitely. Before we start on even the emergency actions, I did also want to bring up that we should have a box of swag. I got it delivered about a month ago, but it's locked in a cupboard, so I can't actually access it. We should have little stickers and little raffle tokens, and people who contributed could have won. It's just, we're in a security building, so I'd assume someone would have a lockpick on, but we could have won beanies and socks, because what we need in a heatwave is beanies and socks, but they're happily provided to us by Splunk, and I'm grateful to have them. I think they'll try to send more throughout the years, but it just depends on participation. So the more people who show up in person and online, the more chance that we'll get a box of swag like this next year. So please do attend, or try to invite people along to this event.
It's like council budgets, we have to use it, otherwise we don't get any more.
I don't think the mic will pick you up from here. There's a specific reason why I'm holding it like this. Oh, thanks very much. Now I have a slightly different monitor right here. I've just been speaking without the slides on deck. That's annoying. Give me a second. Transition. Ooh. Yeah, and YouTube's on a 20-second delay, so I can't see what's happening. So just imagine if the normal slides from the last couple of years of user groups have just been on the screen. That's pretty much all you've been missing. Anyway, urgent actions, because there was a big kerfuffle just as .conf happened. So this CSV 2000 I don't know it off the top of my head, is right there. I'm not going to recite it, but essentially, of course, second monitor. Essentially, there was a critical CVE that was released by Splunk, where we had a case of potentially someone could put a malicious app on a universal forwarder and then somehow get that deployed up to the deployment server, and then so it essentially hijacks the deployment server and then could distribute apps out like that. I don't think Splunk had seen it exploited in the open, but it's a very severe bug. So anything before 8.1.10.1 to 8.2.6.1 and .9, 9.0 are affected, and essentially the fix is to upgrade your deployment servers. There was a bit of a massive argument when this first was announced, because the only upgrade fix was go to 9, but 9 had literally just been released that day, so people not being fans of .0 had a bit of a war on the Splunk Ideas page.
Most customers turned it off.
Yeah, so Tom's saying most customers turned the deployment server off because, but if you upgrade to these backported bug fixes, that should fix the issue as well. There were a bunch of other bugs released at the same time as this one, with the only fix to be .9 upgrading to 9.0, but I don't know if they're going to fix these bugs either at the moment. There's a bit. If you look on Splunk Ideas, if you've ever seen that before, is essentially a voting system to get ideas up and running, and I'm pretty sure that's one of the ones that is going up and up at the moment. But I don't know what the roadmap is for fixing that issue. But yeah, upgrade if you can. Turn the deployment server off if you can't, and you that's a viable option. Yeah. That is, yeah. And with that, we're going to move on to Conf 22. So I attended this online. Tom over there was lucky enough to, they can't see you. Tom was lucky enough to attend in person as a Splunk trustee. I pulled these stats from, I think it was a blog. It's not actually Splunk's official numbers because I couldn't quite find it. But there was about 12,500 attendees, around 1,800 partners. There was a party with Snoop Dogg. We'll hear all about that later, I think. And I counted 187 sessions that I could personally attend as part of the online component. There might have been a few others that were just in person. I know when I went to Conf a couple of years ago, there was a session that I went to, and then they didn't upload it onto the session's videos. So
All the global partners, stuff
yeah.
didn't make it online. So.
Yeah, like I think it was SoftBank. That was the one that I attended that didn't end up. So I'm assuming there's a bunch of others. And like Tom said, a lot of global partners didn't want their material up. At the moment, sessions are only available for people who have paid the virtual attendance fee. So the online sessions, you had a free tier which allowed you access to the super sessions. I think I can't quite remember everything with it, but if you paid $150, you also got access to the sessions themselves, the breakouts, and then a swanky hoodie for free. But these should be publicly released in August, September or so, early September. You can see the session catalog, but you'll see that in one of the tags it'll just say paid in yellow at the moment. So hopefully they'll reveal soon when that's going to be free. So I'm mainly going to focus on changes to Splunk Cloud and Enterprise 9. There's a lot of things to cover that I didn't have time to look into or add slides to. But this session up there in the bracket is the recommended session to essentially see everything that I'm regurgitating here. There's 3 key tenets that Splunk were wanting to show. So end-to-end visibility, rapid time to action, and more extensibility. And I'll go through each of these one by one. So end-to-end visibility, or more ways to get data onboarded. A few of these actually showed up in last conf, so if you looked at some of the slides from then, some of it might be familiar, like Data Manager, but Data Manager is now in general availability for AWS data feeds, and it'll soon come into GCP and Azure. So Data Manager is sort of a cloud UI to make getting data in from cloud sources a lot easier. So instead of going through like an AWS add-on clicking through all the account settings, and I think it takes like 18 clicks or something like that to set up a CloudWatch input from scratch. I think Data Manager makes it 5 or something ridiculously short.
It creates a Terraform to then use to set up Kinesis Firehose, so instead of pulling,
The mic can't hear you, but we're getting technical information from the guy across the room.
So the Data Manager is basically, instead of where you'd usually have the app or in case of AWS reaching out and pulling it back in, the Data Manager will and it also allows kind of multi-accounts. So if you've got really complex account structure in your AWS, it will also allow you to kind of account for that, and then it'll give you a Terraform file, and then you basically run that in your AWS, and that sets up the Kinesis Firehose to basically send that data to the cloud. So rather than pulling it in, it's pushing it in, and it is all in line with AWS best practice, logging, etc. And Azure is out there. I don't know if it's GA yet, but Azure is definitely out there, only for event hubs and one other thing, but GCP probably will take a little while.
Yeah, I think it was in preview during the .conf sessions, at least. I don't know, like, in the month since then. Oh, someone... Sorry about that. There's other new add-ons that they were trying to advertise, show off. So Google Workspaces, CrowdStrike, some for Jira Server and Cloud. There was a GitHub one. There was a Snowflake. There's a whole bunch on the session that I mentioned in the previous slide. There's Smart Store on Azure, which is going to be cool because I think a lot of companies are moving to Azure for various purposes. So having Smart Store there allows them to have better data retention, essentially. And then you've got this new index feature called Flex Index. There's a more in-depth session on the screen right there, but it's essentially instead of indexing all your data as is and not searching 90% of the data because it's not needed at the time, you can store data in a flex index. So essentially store it away. It's not ingested. I might be a bit wrong there, but it's essentially you store it in cheap cheap storage, and then when the time comes to look at the data, it takes a bit of processing and comes out with the data. I can't really remember too much about it. It was highly recommended for forensics. So if you don't need all your data for your instant monitoring, and you need to retain some for forensics, I think Flex Index is what is going to be recommended in the near future. I don't know if it's got the same cost as the new type of indexing that they've got in the cloud, where you can only pull back 10% of your data. I can't quite remember what that one is. I'm not sure if that's Flex Index or not. Anyway, more features. Ingest action. So this was announced at last conf, but they've shown it off again. Grabbed the GIF off of the website. It's essentially a way to do masking and routing without the requirement to set up your conf files. So in that example there, you might not be able to see it on the screen too well, but essentially they're writing a regex at the top and adding redact this, essentially, and then it just fires that off there at the side. What it can do is I think it can route the redacted data into S3, for example, and retain the rest onto your on your on-prem. So like if something's needed for audit, but then they don't have any rights to see some of the data, you can easily just ship it off to them like this. One more thing. So this showed up in the super session. I was trying to find information about this, but it was a bit hard. There's literally like 2 minutes in the super session where the technical lead describes what this is, but Anomaly Detection Assistant for Splunk. I found this was a cool sort of demo. It's essentially a UI led by machine learning to detect anomalies in your time series data sets. You can sort of do this with MLTK and the deep learning toolkit already, but this is like a quick and easy interface just to find an anomaly. And the demonstration that they showed was they saw a rise in bad status codes, and they tied that up to essentially someone botnetting coupon codes. So the high error rate leads to 500s, and then they ship that off to the security team to investigate. It's I don't know whereabouts this is. It's currently in preview app on Splunk base. You need to install a few prerequisites according to the Splunk base. But yeah, I thought that was sort of a cool demonstration. I might get it working one day for like a future Conf, future session, but not today. Rapid time to action. Some cool new stuff that I'm a big sort of fan of. Multisite cluster managers. So if you have a multi-site, traditionally you only had one cluster manager. Some people could have like an active standby, but they'd have to manually sort of run through the steps to get the cluster manager up and running if one falls over. And obviously your indexes and your search heads have a bit of panic until that happens. But multi-site cluster manager allows you to just designate another cluster manager, and then if one falls over, the other one just picks up where it leaves off. So if you've still got stuff in on-prem across multiple data centers, it's a really good addition right there. General upgrades with software, so KV Store and MongoDB, which is the underlying layer of KV Store, got a version upgrade, so there's a spike to search performance. And also ES search head clustering is now a thing in the cloud. So if you've got ES, I don't think that was I think it was like a single search head in the past, but that was a bit dodgy. The TV sort of blinked there. But essentially, that's a brand new change. One of the other things that was announced, more reintroduced, is Federated Search. Federated Search has been going on for a while. I've actually did a session in person. So remember, we had 2 years of not doing sessions in person on DFS, which was like the precursor to Federated Search. I was like about to say, oh, I've done this already, but no, it's a slightly different thing. But essentially, you create. They've gone through a couple of different ways of doing this, but I think they now have you create a user on each search head that you can essentially federate your searches to. So you can do cloud to cloud, cloud to on-prem, on-prem to cloud, and cloud to on-prem. On-prem to cloud includes this transparent mode. I think essentially you don't need to provide KOs, knowledge objects, into the cloud. It just seamlessly does it through the Elastic or the data fabric, or whatever they call that secure bridge, the space bridge. Yeah. Yeah. And Federated Search should allow you to search S3 buckets directly. Not quite sure how that works quite yet. Probably in that session up at the top. so yeah, if you have S3 buckets that you haven't ingested and you don't want to ingest, Federated Search should make it possible to do. I think in the past, Federated Search promised to also search things like Hadoop, but I'm not quite sure what the current status of that is. There's probably more in that session, which I haven't had the time to do, even though I'm probably the only person outside of Tom who's actually got access to the sessions, because we attended .conf in the pricey way. In the near future, there's a couple of new Cloud Admin dashboards. So they've essentially created a brand new health check dashboard for cloud, so uptime, availability, maintenance periods from your dashboard. Improvements to admin config service, which is something that I've not yet been able to use, but it's essentially an API to send configuration securely to Splunk Cloud without the need of going through a Splunk support or something along those lines, is to try to make your onboarding of Splunk Cloud more autonomous than needing to rely on a Splunk engineer to do it on their end. So like Tom said across the room, IPLL lists is the big one for ACS. Sorry, there's too many things with A blank S. It's going to get really confusing in the near future.
3 sims already now.
Yes, IPLL lists, create indexes, manage your HEC, upload apps, your limits.conf at the moment, getting apps from Splunk base, and this is all through like a command line sort of API. Coming soon, setting maintenance windows, on-prem configuration migration to cloud. You okay, TV? No, you're not. What the hell? Oh. Yeah, here we go. Sorry, the presentation TV just had a bit of a sleep right there. But on-prem conf migration to cloud, so essentially taking your on-prem, shoving it up in the cloud. I'm not quite sure how that's going to work yet, but because there'll be settings in on-prem that just won't apply to cloud, but should be cool to see. Yeah, and search and configuration manager management, and then there was also a operator for Kubernetes 1.1 if you deploy Splunk using Kubernetes in the cloud. So it's a newer version. You got new features for pod security, and essentially like Kubernetes has been upgraded, so newer features that are available should be able to be extended through the new operator. And there's an automated setup of the monitoring console as well, which should make it easy just to kick off a build and see what it's doing. One of the bigger changes that is coming is SPL2 and the new way to search. So SPL2 is essentially a way to get newcomers into Splunk, or people who don't want to learn SPL, an ability to actually manipulate the data sets and produce an output. You might have database admins who know SQL come onto a project, and instead of having them learn SPL, SPL2 should provide a sort of familiar SQL-esque language that they can use to create their queries. There's also a new search UI where essentially you can point and click for data, and you essentially just build searches by, it's like the old glass tables, but more powerful, I think. This one's quite interesting. Run multiple search statements in the same tab rather than having like the 20 tabs I tend to have on a day-to-day basis. So I think you can run a chunk and then have another chunk of search down there with the same sort of results. And I think the new interface makes it easier to create the chart from the point and click and then sticking it into a dashboard, which will probably be the Dashboard Studio UI. There's another new product called Splunk Assist. So this connects to the cloud and checks your deployment and essentially gives you recommendations of if there's any configuration that you've got that has dodgy settings like SSL settings set too low, or something is being set to like an extreme. There's some sort of icons about what it'll try to do down at the bottom. Again, check out the session once you have the ability to do so. I think we're coming to the end of this, hopefully, because I've been talking for about 50 minutes and haven't even eaten any of the pizza. So new Splunk base, if you've logged in, you might have seen like a little icon saying try new Splunk base. It's in, I think it's in preview or beta. Essentially, it's a flashy, it's Splunk base in dark mode, but it's got a lot of improved search capabilities, like a collection functionality. Yeah. Dashboard Studio, I don't think anything particularly new has come out of Dashboard Studio since last conf and this conf, although I have noticed that text is now in Markdown, so if you like Markdown text, you can just add it to the screen. Though that annoyed me, because if you're on YouTube, you can see that the layout is actually based on Dashboard Studio. I spent like an hour trying to size squares and text just for layouts, and then I couldn't make the text a bit larger because it's in Markdown, but that's for me to work out for next SUG. MLTK has been upgraded. Don't know a lot about the new features, but more data, more machine learning, the better, I think, in this day and age. Automated private app validation. So this probably great for if you have apps going into Splunk Cloud. Instead of uploading an app and then having Splunk rep take like up to 2 weeks to vet it, this process should take only 5 minutes if it passes app inspect. And then there's a bunch of improved security features. So role-based field filtering. So if you've got a user role that shouldn't be able to see a certain field that is confidential, you can actually say, no, you can't see this field. So sounds cool. There's SPL safeguards, which has apparently bitten where I work in the butt because we didn't realize this was a thing. We've got a few commands that collect and write out lookups, and suddenly people like complaining because they're saying, no, you can't do that. But I think there's a way in .conf to suppress these messages, but I think if it's in Splunk Cloud, you need to talk to your Splunk rep. And then there's a bit of improvements to secret and password handling. I think this is the final one before Tom's section. So Splunk Cloud Developer Edition. So this should be good for partners or third parties who are building apps for essentially customers. This allows people allows them to connect to a customer's site to test their apps on customer data. I don't know about if it gets anonymized or what exactly happens there. Again, this is like a brief 2-second mention on the super session, and I couldn't find the breakout session for this because Splunk Cloud Developer Edition is so generic in the session catalog that I couldn't find it. But it uses a mix of the access control service and the private vetting that was on the previous slide to upload the app. And just paraphrasing, self-service to programmatically manage apps, config, and data. And with that, we're on to Tom, because my .conf experience was just watching slides at about 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. and then struggling to function on the second day. So I'm going to pass over to Tom, who's going to speak about his experience. Take it away.
Go and enjoy your pizza, Andrew, and all the other bevies are on there before everyone else gets them. Hi, everyone. So, yeah, I'm Tom Wise. I'm going to go through my conf experience. Again, just to, I guess, if anyone wants to do it in the future, at least it gives you an idea of what to expect, at least while it's potentially still in Vegas. So, yeah, so this was the first Splunk user conference since I first attended Conf back in 2019. 2019 was a really great conf, but obviously it was all in person. I think there was around 8,000 to 10,000 people there. This time it was a much more subdued, even though there was 12,500 people attended the whole thing. It was only between 3, maybe 5 absolute max actually attended the Vegas element of it. It was held in June this year rather than October, which was a bit of a pain because obviously, as we're all experiencing right now, the heat in Vegas in June is extremely high in comparison to October, where there's usually a bit more breeze and manageability in the heat. This time it was in the MGM Grand, so in 2019 it was in the Venetian. Venetian. This time it was in the MGM Grand, with all the keynote speeches held in the MGM Grand Garden Arena, where there's loads of bands and cool, like even I think the weekend that we left. The weekend that we left, there was like Slipknot, I think, on the Friday, because Rory was gutted that he wasn't staying on the Friday night to go and see it. So yeah, it was great arena. And then there was thousands of in-person and virtual attendees, as Andrew said, and obviously some great guest speakers, which I'll talk about in a second. And then there was the search party with Snoop Dogg. And one of the good things about being a Splunk Trust member, which I am, is we got a little VIP area as well. We were meant to have a picture with him, but unfortunately it took over an hour to actually set up the sound at the party, so obviously he decided not to bother. He was probably a little bit too stoned by that point anyway, although I don't know if Snoop actually gets too stoned. But it was a great party. Lots of great food and great music. Next slide, please. No. One too far.
It's a new laptop.
Okay. So, beginning the journey. So, I just thought I'd say, so basically I arrived on the Saturday, because it didn't technically start on the Monday, although there was the Monday evening stuff, but I like to get there a bit early, especially when you're sort of jet lagging, get out there nice and early, get nice and acclimatized, and to the heat as well, although, you don't necessarily need to walk around too much. But I got there on the Saturday. I stayed at the Luxor, which one really cool little feature is they have inclinators, not elevators, because they travel up the side of the pyramid. So it's a really weird feeling where usually you'd get that feeling, but you kind of get that feeling. So it was really interesting. And then while I was waiting for my colleagues to arrive, because they didn't really turn up until I think the Sunday night, I also went and watched the Tournament of Kings at Excalibur. I would highly recommend it. I do like to do a bit of what's called HEMA, so historical European martial arts, so I do a bit of sword fighting myself. But it was just good fun to sit there, and I actually had to root for the bad guys, so you kind of get to sit in all of the areas of the different kingdoms and stuff, like Romania, Ireland and stuff, but I was in the dragon section, which meant we had to boo all the good guys and cheer all the bad guys. I highly recommend it. It was only like $75. Food's included. It's just a plate full of hand stuff, because like all day, so they give you a small chicken, roast potatoes, a bun, and it's corn on the cob, and it's all just fingers. Obviously, I had my medieval Pepsi, historically accurate Pepsi, but apart from that, everything else was really good. But first, bots. So Monday night, after the soiree, which was just like a quick kind of some free drinks going around in the Source Pavilion, which is usually where they have all the vendors and things like that, and some of the displays like the McLaren F1 car and stuff. But first you have bots, and that is a picture from the event. Obviously they had both in-person attendance and they had virtual. But for those of you who aren't sure or haven't heard of bots before, Boss of the Sock is basically a capture of the flag event that Splunk run every conf, and then they usually run them subsequently in like Splunk Lives and partner events and stuff as well. I still hold the record for the highest points deduction of 10,000 points because I'd done it before and we still came fourth. So it is a really fun thing that brings all the Splunkers together. There's usually multiple scenarios, so they're scenario based, so it's not like you're all working on the same server towards the same thing. You can kind of pick up your own scenarios. In this case, we had there's usually a really entry-level one, like using enterprise security, that 80% of it is just walking you through using enterprise security. The last 20% will actually mean you've got to use your head a little bit. But there was one dedicated to SOAR, which I finished in 17 minutes. And then there was one dedicated to APT. There was some Easter egg items, so you had to do some stenography, for example, to pull out things from pictures and then submit that as an answer, for example. You get your own servers. Each team gets their own servers as well. So again, there's no worry about kind of cross-contamination or people trying to bring your server down, although there's always that worry, I guess, when you're in a room full of techies. And then questions have a time bonus. So obviously, if you answer a question really quickly, then you get kind of almost double points, right? If your question's 200 points, then generally it's like 190 points if you answer it within the first 10 minutes, for example. And that does slowly degrade as you kind of go through. But there is also incorrect answer penalties as well. So you can submit as many answers as you want. Obviously, I wouldn't recommend brute forcing, but you do then get penalties for that as well. But what I haven't put on here is the every hour mark. So I think it goes on for about 3 hours. Every hour they kind of release a set of hints. In the past, you used to be able to buy hints. But now what they do is they just do it on a timer that everyone gets hint 1 after the first hour, hint 2 after the second hour. That can be really important, which is good sometimes as a tactic to not just kind of really focus on one question that's not working and just carry on and do the ones you can. And then when the first hint sets come out, go back to those questions again. So we're usually a top 10 team. I say we. I had none of my usual teammates this year, but I'm not blaming them, honestly. Unfortunately, one of them has left the company and the other one didn't come with us. But my team name every time is for sore eyes only. For those of you who don't know, I'm very sore orientated. And we managed to keep the top 10 spot for the first half of the event, but then eventually jet lag and, if I'm totally honest, difficulty set in. I did feel like a bit of a spare part towards the end because there wasn't really much else I could do with the Splunk side because I've been so sore focused. I could do some of the ES stuff and maybe help them with the Easter egg bits. I think I managed to get a couple of Easter eggs, but apart from that, yeah, it just ended up quite difficult, and we ended up still in the top half of the whole event, which for me was good. But yeah, we ended up in the top 100. Was that the next slide? Oh, okay. So we did have a final keynote, which was Adam Savage from Mythbusters.
If there's more, I can exit and rejoin.
Yeah, I thought there was. I didn't think it was right there, but that's fine. I thought there was more after that.
We could just double check.
Yeah. I might have put it at the wrong spot, to be fair. No, that's fine. Yeah, apologies. It's all good. Present. Oh, there we go. 5 clicks does it. Okay, so the slide that I was on before, so Adam Savage from Mythbusters, he basically gave the final talk on the final day, which is funny because as you can see, the Garden Arena there is not very full because this was the day after the search party. And that was pretty wild, so you can imagine not a lot of people got out of their beds. But it was great because the first question he asked everyone was, how many people in this room have destroyed or burnt something because of something I've done on TV? And it was 80% of the crowd hand just went straight up. So, and it was really cool. He talked about his kind of career and that he's kind of done what he called reverse fame. So he started off in the kind of doing movie bit parts and animating. He was the first animator on Star Wars Episode 2, which was a pretty cool thing I didn't know. And then he kind of went to Mythbusters, which was just a kind of flash in the pan thing, which obviously ended up lasting a very long time. and now he's a YouTuber, and he prefers that because he's now able to do whatever he wants, basically blow up stuff and whatever. But apparently the bomb squad from obviously where they were based is now the most trained bomb squad in the whole of the US, because obviously you can't really train for bombs necessarily unless you have a reason, and these guys give them a reason, constantly blowing stuff up in the hills and that. So on the final day as well, there was lots of pictures being chucked around and stuff, and it just so happened that I ended up on that one, not that you can see me pointing on here, and ended up on that one. I don't quite like the one on the right, but hey, it's all good. So it's just nice to see my face and Adarma pop up a couple of times in the end, but again, that's not very Splunky. So I did attend a few sessions. I was also kind of out there. I did actually do a talk myself, which I didn't put in here for some reason. It wasn't a proper talk, so I'll just quickly cover that. So the Global Partner Summit happened at the same time as Conf, and I was invited to talk about basically SOAR as an expert. There was two other people, one other trust member and another partner from Hurricane Labs. And we were just talking about our experiences led by Rob Gresham, the principal product manager for SOAR or for security, in Splunk. Just kind of, again, talking about best practice, things we've seen in the field, where to start. Again, it was a really kind of intimate talk about SOAR. About 30 or 40 people in the room with us. It wasn't recorded because, again, it was a partner summit talk, which not any of them, I don't think, made it onto the Conf website. But again, it was really good just to kind of see some, new SOAR faces, and we did get asked quite a lot of questions once we'd finished as well. So again, I was really happy to be invited to do that as well. I didn't get any swag for the partner summit talk, unfortunately, but I'll let that go this time. So the two ones that I kind of remember and I guess was a bit more invested in was the Navy soaring with Splunk. That was really good. What? Oh, sorry. Yes. Yes, there are people in the room. I keep forgetting. We are now live in person as well. So the Navy soaring with Splunk. So I saw this quite a while ago when it was kind of first reported by Splunk. So they do this kind of artificial intelligence or autonomous cybersecurity SOAR challenge, right? And they brought in all of the kind of big players, all the Palo Alto Cortex. Threat Connect, they had a few kind of other people who just built their own SOAR capability for this particular challenge. And it's a two-phase challenge where you get 7 days to prepare. So you get given a bunch of use cases, basically. You get 7 days to prepare and 5 days to install and then implement. The session is really good. The session detail is in the bit there. But they kind of went into the process that they did. And what was really cool was out of the 5 use cases they were given, because of SOAR's kind of modular capability and reusable code capability, because 2 of them were specific to malware, they were actually able to kind of truncate 2 use cases into 1 playbook, which meant they didn't actually have as much kind of even planning and implementation to do as other people might. Again, they kind of range from sort of standard stuff to some malware handling stuff, etc. as well. It's like 4 playbooks for the entire thing. Again, the talk goes into a lot more detail about the process, and obviously because it was Oak Ridge National Laboratory running this, it was very sort of stringent in how they test this, because obviously, it's a proper managed test, if you like. So there was some real sort of rigidity over what you're allowed to do, what information you're allowed to have and share, and then obviously go into this. And also, you didn't actually run this yourself. It was actually the Navy guys, or they would get a Navy SOC guy to sit down and run through whatever you'd built, playbooks, workbooks, and a combination of the lot, for example. So obviously they won, which was great. They got like a $750,000 check, which the guy was like, I have no idea where that went. Because everyone's question was obviously, did you see any of that money? And he was like, no, we didn't see any. But we got the kudos for delivering it and winning it for Splunk. Excuse me. And then there was the jump to hyperspace, publishing apps at light speed with open source. So within the last year, a lot of the SOAR apps have become open source. They used to be compiled files. If you wanted to sort of change anything, edit anything, you have to decompile it, which would usually mess around with the file structure. But now they've open sourced it, so they just give you the PI files and all the JSON files. Again, Splunk based, as Andrew was talking about, all of them are now available on there to download and kind of edit as much as you want. But they had the Dan Nunez from Domain Tools and Matt Sayre, who's kind of like the apps person, the product manager for apps within Splunk. And they talked about how obviously, these apps are heavily relied on, and sometimes Splunk doing the updates can take a very long time because they don't necessarily have the driver to do it. even if customers shout about it. But now with it being more open sourced, it's obviously more of a community thing now, where people can edit apps, update existing apps, etc. as well. But to get that onto Splunk base, they've tried to make it a lot cleaner and a lot quicker now as well. So you can submit it through the Git. There's a Git link that you can go to, which is like SOAR connectors. You can obviously branch off one of the branches for Git, update your app, push it back in, and it usually takes a few days depending on the complexity of the app. And then that app, if it passes validation, will then basically be on Splunk base, ready for customers to either download manually, or if you're on the SOAR platform, you can just download it by doing the upgrade apps button. So yeah, it was interesting. And if you're not sure how to develop apps on SOAR, or if it's something you ever want to do, I would, if you ever go into SOAR, it's something I would definitely recommend putting that feather in your cap, because it's not something a lot of people know how to do. So again, there is a free education course on how to develop SOAR apps. It's much easier now in the platform because there's an IDE in the platform now. So again, highly recommend jumping on the training if it's something you ever actually fancy doing. So now for something different. So this was the highlight, if I'm honest, of Conf for me. Just briefly, like Conf, although it was great for seeing people in person again and getting to sort of see some Splunky things, there was a lot of stuff that was really just brought from the last 3 years to the forefront with new buzzwords. Like Andrew said, Federated Search has been around for a long time. There was a lot of stuff like Splunk Assist, which is really driving more cloud adoption, because all it's really going to do is tell you how bad your infrastructure is and make you make the decision to go to cloud a bit quicker. Potentially. But automation games is something brand new. So they did run kind of like a beta or a version of this in the community probably about a year and a half ago now. And it was really simple stuff. So they'd just fire events that'd be like area of a circle, perimeter of a square, and you'd have to do some very basic math with an app that they gave you, excuse me, and then post that answer. But this time round, and one of the main issues with that was it wasn't real world, right? Like, yes, you could sort of do some cool automation, but there's never a real world requirement for you to automate making the area of a square up from 2 values. So this time they actually expanded it into real use case or real life use cases. And what they do is they basically have 4 sets of questions, 4 question sets with multiple questions inside of them, 13 overall. And then when they turn them on at the beginning, they just basically your platform just starts ingesting these events continuously as if you were in a real life SOC. So you then have to start building the automation to handle those events as they come in. So obviously you want to kind of work through it first, do it manually inside one event, right? I know how this works, build it in the playbook, test it against 1 or 2 events, and then when you're happy, you turn it on to active. And at that point, every time a new event comes in for that playbook, it's just going to run automatically and start firing those answers up as well. Obviously, as with all automation, you automate your mistakes just as much as you do everything else. So lots of error handling required. Like, how do you know if you've posted a wrong answer? Because if you post a wrong answer, you get a deduction in points. And if it's all working at machine speed, how do you know? So one person right at the beginning said, do I close my events? And everyone was like, well, everyone who knew what to do with these games anyway was like, well, and then it was like, well, yeah, that's a tactic, right? Like, yeah, you could just kind of just turn that into active and ignore it, but then you don't know how many point deductions you're getting. So yes, you should have like some sort of error handling that says, if my answer was correct, close it down, otherwise do something, and then at least I can see the events that aren't being handled and go back and do it. A useful tip for anyone, I don't think a lot of people did this, but once you got it working, you could actually go back over all of the same questions and just highlight them all and run that playbook against them, and your points would take a nice little jump. And I don't think many people did that. I think a lot of people kind of just did the automation, turned it on at the point they had it working without then historically going back. So it's just Tom's top tip, should you ever do the automation games, is make sure you go back and run the playbook that works against all of the previous ones that haven't been run. They give you minor guidance in the events, like in the description field. It's usually like given an IP address, what's the ASN of the domain or something like that it's related to, or there'll be some sort of really small object inside the return from the apps, for example. And that's all you have to go off. Now, they do have a bunch of apps in there. So they had Virus Total, they had Azure AD Graph, Carbon Black, Threat Connect, Threat Crowd, all kinds of apps. But what was really cool is none of them actually had real endpoints to connect to. They actually hit an API gateway that they already had all this cached information in the background as well. So you weren't using real Carbon Black endpoints, you weren't blocking IPs on Zscaler properly. All you were doing was sending the command from the app, and then getting the response back as if it was a real life response, which was awesome. And you could always tell if you hit the wrong bit because it just came back saying no data is available for that request. But again, it was really cool because it did actually simulate real world environments. The only problem with it was that they basically messed with the apps. So whereas usually the Azure AD graph would have all these outputs, on purpose they messed with them or didn't add or deleted some of them, so that when you got the return back, you saw the actual JSON had this value in it, but then you were like, but in the playbook I can't see the value to select it. So they were a bit tricky, especially when you got to level 2, level 3, and obviously level 4 scenarios as well. It became really tricky. I think one of them, the user reporting unable to access normal applications as well. It just used Azure AD graph, but they only gave you like an object ID for the group that they were a member of. So you had to do like 3 or 4 different actions within Azure AD graph just to get the telephone number of the person that was actually involved in this particular event. So again, sometimes it was multiple apps, and sometimes it was the same app but multiple jumps in order to get the information you wanted. So I'll just quickly run through them. So beaconing to an external address came with an IP address, but sometimes I'd also put internal IP addresses in there as well. So in your playbook, you had to kind of filter those out to make sure you didn't do any 10.172.192 dots, for example. Suspicious download from a URL, unsigned file on an endpoint, phishing submissions, excess data transmission, and newly seen domain. You'd usually, for level 1, you'd usually only have to use one app and pick one piece of information out. And they didn't really mess too much with the stuff on level 1 because I think it's obviously a way of, getting people just kind of off the starters block, if you like. And they keep firing level 1 throughout the whole event. So even though you move to level 2 or 3 or 4, they still fire level 1 and, they still keep firing those events through. Level 2 was just a couple of questions, DNS tunneling and user reporting access to normal applications. I definitely remember that one being you had to get their telephone number, but you had to kind of, like I say, do like list all users in this group, and then you'd have to find the user you wanted, get their object ID, and then run something like list user attributes, I think. And then you'd have to pull the telephone number out, which was like really deep in the JSON object as well. And then we had level 3, which was like large number of emails suspected, logging into multiple devices, encoded PowerShell. So you did actually have to decode some PowerShell commands. So there was a little bit of custom code required in level 3. And then level 4, I'll be honest, I didn't even get to. It was pretty tough at that point, trying to just fix all the little holes in level 1, level 2, level 3 as well. Excuse me. So the way I did it was I had the post answer. If it was a success, I closed it. If it wasn't a success, then I basically changed the status to new and I put a tag of failed on the container. And then in my browser session, I just had a tab open to like the queue in SOAR, and I just had it filtered to look for containers in a new status with the tag of failed. And I just kept jumping to it every few minutes. And obviously if there was anything in the queue, then I knew that one of my playbooks had failed or not done its job properly. So I'd quickly go into the playbook, deactivate it just so that it didn't keep churning out wrong answers, fix it, test it, reactivate it, and wait for anything to come back to me. So yeah, again, really, really interesting and very heavily involved. But I came third, which was really interesting because there was actually two. There was me as a Splunk Trust member and obviously SOAR person. There was another Splunk Trust member, Mike, who was there as well. And we were there, and when it started, we looked at each other and said, should we team up? And then we both decided that's probably a bit like unfair, right? I mean, we're both SOAR experts. Like, why would we do that? And then we came second and third, like subsequently, and then it was a random team came first, and we definitely pledged to team up next time. So watch this space for me winning the next automation games. So here's just a couple of the games that, apologies for the quality of the pictures, but it was just, yeah, it was at the end of a very long on my own coding session, basically, which is what this was. So there's some really cool stats. So what they were doing is they were monitoring all of the kind of, the uses of the platforms, because they gave you the actual servers and stuff. I think I was called Snoop the Logger or something like that. So as they went through, here's all of the information. So for example, how many playbooks were built, how many actions were run, how much money was saved. So literally in a couple of hours, like $14,000 was saved. Obviously that percentage, correct started off really high and then very quickly started to plummet, and in the end it landed around the 49-50%. We saved a lot of time, etc. And then obviously again the picture quality isn't the best, but I'm the third one on that list of fuzzy names, which, like I say, you didn't even get to choose your own team name because they basically just gave you a sheet of paper like old school, and then you had to go into the URL. So I was Snoop the Logger. But it was great fun. Highly recommend it. I do suspect that just like bots, they might end up like running more of them, and might even like release eventually some of the kind of the setup like they do with bots, so you can sort of get bots 1, for example, right now and spin it up yourself and run it yourself. So I hope they do it with the automation games. And just like I am now, legs out, this is me with Buttercup right on the last day. And again, you can't really see it, but that's my automation games trophy in my hand, which is a nice little metal trophy. Probably a cheap metal, but it was still a metal trophy. I was very, very proud to come third, and that next time first. And I think that was the end of my slides. Aha! It is. Thank you for listening.
Right. Thank you, Tom. I was just trying to remember what sessions I went to. Luckily, I had them on my calendar. So I think there's a Visual Studio one that I quite liked. So the Visual Studio Code, they essentially had a session where it's like, how do you connect Visual Studio Code to your Conf infrastructure? And you can do it with a couple of plugins, apparently. So you can essentially spin up a connection from your on-prem code instance to your cloud instance if you wanted to. It's quite cool. Everything's just disappeared. Oh no, there it is. And then there was a few detection deep dives and attack range ones that I found interesting. And then the second day I got distracted with the fact that I had friends wanting to talk to me. So it's like Conf on one end of the screen and then chat on the other. It's just like I can't concentrate on two things at once. I'm gonna give up on this. To the people in the room, did anybody actually see any sessions themselves? So, no, no, sadly not. Next year. So any other business? So there's no next slide after this for this section. So in the past couple of sessions, we've sort of tried to get a bit more interactivity from the group, because it was myself and Tom essentially doing all the material, and then at the end of a Teams call it was just like nothing, and it was a bit sad for like a sort of interactivity part for myself. So I asked a few other user group leaders what they sort of tend to do, and one of them came up with this whole let's try troubleshooting an issue sort of thing. Now, I don't know if anybody's actually got an issue to troubleshoot today, but if they do, in the future, this would be the ideal opportunity to get some people who are interested in Splunk to talk about your issue. So does anybody have anything to contribute? Even nothing, like anything to do with Splunk at all? I'd take that as a sleepy 30-degree no, as everyone's tired from the fact that it's radiating. Yeah, I managed to sleep all right last night, but I know people.
I have to have a fan on, but yeah, I managed all right.
Yeah, but all right. So.
Yeah, no, just for the future, if there is anything, definitely.
Yeah. So giveaway time. So I think I've only seen one person online. Well, there's two. So there's John from Splunk, but I can't actually see who's actually watching, because I know we've got the live stream here and one there, so it's a bit skewed. So I don't know if they're still online. But if is everyone in the room happy to enter the raffle? Yeah. Speak now, because I've got it on my phone, so I can literally I can raffle it off right now. So as you can see, all 5 of you, your names are there, and I spin the wheel. Yeah. I would have this on the screen, but it's been a faff to yeah.
It will get a bit more logistically impressive.
Yeah. I'm gonna pump the volume up. You can hear that. If you want to, it's Ben. So you almost won it again, Ryan. You're good at winning it. Okay, so straight after this, I'll get you your details, and I'll just send you the code because I've got it in my emails already. So this is sort of the final slide. Please get involved. The user group, obviously you've made your way here, so you should know the user group URL. But if you're watching it online, it's the Edinburgh Splunk user group. We've got a LinkedIn page. I tend to update it when there's a new session on the way. Don't know if we should use it a bit better. I'm not quite sure yet. We do get, yeah, we do get a stream of users joining, but the nature of LinkedIn is they may not be in Edinburgh. Yeah, we've got so Splunk's got a community Slack channel, which is great. I've spent years on it. Tom's on it. MVP on it, apparently. So if you sign up on that link or the QR code, which I have tested in the last couple of days, it still works. It sends you to a Google Doc to essentially sign up for the access to the Slack channel. But on there, you've got Splunkers and community members. Tends to be people asking questions and people answering said questions. And if you want to present or share at the user group, please feel free to contact us on either of these email addresses. Just a basic Gmail for me, and Tom at his company email.
That's the only thing we probably also want to say is about how to get to. So just one thing I wanted to say as well is like ways to get to Conf. Obviously, we're talking about Conf in this session, right? So there's a few ways. So, for example, one way is become a Splunk Trust member. So to become a Splunk Trust member, you just have to be very active in the community, helping people out. And then you get invited to be a Trust member and you get a free ticket to Conf. If you are going to do a talk at Conf, so if you see anything interesting, maybe a little bit out there, or you've got a use case that you even use at your own home for Splunk, then you want to talk to people about it for half an hour, that'll get you the free ticket if it gets admitted into the conference as well. Otherwise, I suspect it might still be sort of hybrid-y next year as well, but I'm hoping a little bit more people on the ground next year. So yeah, they're kind of the main ways. Is the normal way, just pay for a ticket, pay for your flights, go through the trust, become a trust member, be active in the community, get nominated for the trust. There will be more nominations coming up very soon in preparation for next Conf, which is actually in July next year. They still haven't given a location though. They usually say Vegas or something, but they just give the dates at Conf. So I would expect Vegas, but watch this space. And then, yeah, the only other way, like I say, is to actually do a talk. And doing a talk at Conf is obviously great. You get loads of swag, recognition, and, yeah, you get to talk to some like-minded Splunkers. So, yeah, that's everything from me. Thank you.
And with that, we're going to end the user group session here. So the YouTube video is literally going to end in like a minute once I get to the end stream button. But I'd like to thank people who have joined us online. If you're going to watch this in the future, and everyone who is in the room today, because this has been a long time coming. The whole Teams setup that we've had for the last couple of years has not been the most useful, especially on my older laptop. Yeah.
No more.
Yeah. Now we're moving into the world of OBS and live streaming and having to have a gorilla setup with a webcam on a table, like pointing away from everywhere. I think the solution for next time is longer cables. I think.
And a clicker.
And a clicker, yeah. I'm
Long stick.
well, ideally, like someone to actually just do it in the back, because a couple of years ago we had a company doing the live streaming for us. Yeah. Good chat to them, but that's.
They do it for free if it's a community thing. Apparently, might not be the case anymore, but yeah, we might look into that. That'd be interesting.
But anyway, thank you. We're gonna have that on the YouTube channel. Hopefully, we'll get 100 subscribers and be able to have the vanity URL, because there's requirements for that now. Yeah, you need to have at least 100 subscribers and be active or exist for 30 days. I couldn't actually go live for 24 hours until I clicked the go live button, which I thankfully did on Sunday.
Right.
Otherwise, it'd be like go live it's just going to fail today. But yeah, so thank you. I'm going to shut down the stream. Thanks for attending, and goodbye.